Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and joining me on the show, returning, is former Minnesota Viking and Cincinnati Bengal, and great broadcaster as well, Solomon Wilcotts, along with, let's just call him Minnesota Vikings fan, and also surgeon, Dr. Phillip Thomas, who's going to tell us a little bit about knee pain and solutions to that. But let me ask you first, Mr. Thomas, you doing okay? Because you're a Viking fan, and it didn't exactly end the way that you wanted it to this season.
I unfortunately texted a lot of my friends at the time when it was happening. I said, this is sadly the Vikings we've all come to know and love, that they do an excellent job. And then the games that really matter, unfortunately, seem to not matter to the people that it needs to matter most to. So that was not the performance we were before. That being said, the Lions are doing phenomenal. So it is what it is. They had a great year. So, and I'm happy for them for doing so well, but it was very disappointing, unfortunately, yet again.
We all know that all too well, how many of these seasons end. And, Solly, for the entire year, I was saying, hey, Vikings fans, just enjoy the ride, and you never know how it's going to end. Like, all Vikings fans would tell me all years, they're going to blow it in the playoffs. And I was like, come on, guys, do we really have to do that? And then they ended up being right, Solomon. What do you think happened there?
Look, I can tell you right now, it's the NFL. When you get into the postseason, it's a tournament. It's a tournament. These teams are so good. The teams that are in the postseason, they're so good that there's a very small margin in terms of what separates one team from the other. And if you have a bad day, as the Detroit Lions, think about how bad they must be feeling right now, right? You're the number one seed. You get a week off. And yet you get upset by the Washington Commanders with a rookie quarterback. So that goes to show you how thin the margins really are. Minnesota Vikings, I think, are a very good football team, and I think it's an organization that continues to grow. And I think the fortunate thing here, it looks like Brian Fleury's going to be back, right, as their defensive coordinator, which means they're going to be that much better defensively. And then, of course, you signed your head coach to a contract extension. Around the league, Matt, you and I both know this. Right now, Kevin O'Connell is seen as one of the great young minds as a head coach or as an offensive coach that can help restore quarterbacks and help groom that position. You and I both know those guys are worth their weight in gold. And there's not a quarterback, or at least a coach, I should say, that's more coveted right now than Kevin O'Connell. You guys got yourself a good one.
Well, Dr. Thomas, I know that your main expertise is about knees, but I really do think that your fan perspective is interesting here on the Vikings quarterback situation. I want to get your take, and then we'll get Mr. NFL expert Solomon Wilcotts' take, though, at what the Vikings should do at quarterback. How are you feeling about that after the way that it ended, and where they're going to go here in the future?
Yeah, I think this is always a challenge, right? Because, boy, the Vikings basically I'm 37 years old. So since I've existed, it's just that is the position we just cannot figure out. And it's always something where it's the guy who used to be amazing and then comes in kind of in the nadir of his retirement. It's the guy who looks really promising, or the smartest guy. I mean, all these things where it's like, that's not the guy I want. I want the guy that does great. And obviously I live 5 minutes away from Wisconsin. So my buddies are like, oh, so it must be so hard for you. I'm like, please don't give me any hard times. When you had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back, it is really easy to be a fan for the Packers. Like, I'm sorry for you. But so, I think having that rookie quarterback and drafting him, obviously that meniscus injury is a big deal, but boy, if they can get him ready and kind of get him geared up in the offseason, I would sure love to see what he's capable of and get him kind of into it. And I understand organizing that offense around Sam Darnold, but at the end of the day, I think it's important to, or Sam Darnold, sorry, excuse me, but I think it's important to, transition to sort of the future of what are we going to do and what's the long-term plan. And I think he certainly deserves a shot. So it'll be interesting to see the choices they make. But I agree, Kevin O'Connell's amazing. Amazing coach.
Yeah. What do you think of that take, Solomon? Do you think that they should try to stay with Sam Darnold, or should they move on to JJ McCarthy?
I think you don't have to make that decision. I think you have both, because right now, JJ McCarthy, remember, he had some setbacks this offseason in his recovery. I think you've got to give JJ McCarthy as much time as you can to get healthy, but more. Think about this. He hasn't been able to practice, and I think that's where the plot really thickens. If you were to talk to Kevin O'Connell, he would say, look, we would love to have this season that we had from Sam Darnold and ideally have him play the whole year, play the way that he played, but have JJ McCarthy practicing, right? Have JJ McCarthy actually getting reps and learning and on the sideline with the headset on. He wasn't able to do that because he had surgery. And so he's been off rehabbing and then having had some setbacks during the rehab that is going to only prolong his recovery time. And by the way, keep him off the practice field, which you and I both know is the most important part of this when we talk about growth and development of a young quarterback. So I think now you just got to stay the course really for another year. You have a quarterback that's on a rookie contract. Hopefully you can get, to me, I think optimally, you would want to get JJ McCarthy back, but only to practice next year. Let's just get him on the practice field. And Sam, can you do it again? Right? And you're going to have to give some kind of contract that allows him to be paid well for 2025, but have an option year for 2026 that buys you time between both quarterbacks. I think Atlanta is onto something. I know they've got what you guys used to have in Kirk Cousins, but you can see they've got the for now bridge quarterback in Cousins, but they also have Michael Penix Jr. That's the one thing the Packers have done well for the last 20 years, right? The veteran quarterback serving as a bridge guy while developing the younger guy. You and I both know that's a really good sweet spot to be in.
Yeah, so this is the thing, Solly, is that every time I've mentioned that path on the show, fans like Dr. Thomas rage out in the comments section. But I do think that there's something to being as patient as possible. That if they feel like McCarthy could benefit from another year or even just competition in training camp to see how it plays out, that it's not a crazy thing to potentially bring him back. I did want to ask you, Dr. Thomas, about meniscuses. And I know, just to be clear, like you didn't treat JJ McCarthy, you don't have his file, anything like that. I've always understood this as something that for players, if they have the full type of certain, this is my like doctor lingo, the full thing, as opposed to the partial repair, that usually for someone his age, that it shouldn't be a problem long-term. But what can you tell me about like that recovery process?
Yeah, I just had an 18-year-old basketball kid, and he has an ACL, MCL, so 2 of his ligaments are out, and a meniscus tear. And I told him of those 3 things, the meniscus tear is the one that worries me the most because the quality of the meniscus tissue, the way it heals, does not get the blood flow that other parts of the knee does. So it's a bigger deal to try and get those things to heal. And typically 20 years ago, and all these football players, we just clean the meniscus out, and we stopped doing that. That's kind of the partial repair. They used to just clean it out. And then we found out that 5 years later, they were all getting severe arthritis. And we say, gosh, what's going on here? And it turns out that meniscus is really important, lo and behold. So now we make a much, much more conscientious effort to say, do everything we can to save it. And then that's the big thing, like you were saying, Solomon, where we just got to give it time. I mean, it really takes time for that thing to heal. You don't want to rush it. You don't want to push it too fast. Because if it doesn't heal, then you're in a really tough spot where now you're dealing with the side effects of it not healing and still having knee pain and kind of all these residual issues. So I do agree with that. And that is something I tell a lot of the athletes I treat where, they say, oh, I start soccer in 6 months or football or hockey, whatever it may be. And this is a 6-month recovery. I'll be ready to go. And it's like, no. To be clear, like you don't go from like surgery to then at 6 months, like, oh, I'm full sport ready, full college athlete, like no big deal. It's like, this is just like working out in the weight room and taking reps of practice, all that stuff. I mean, this is a build up for sure. So on the professional level, that's just amplified that much more where it says, you need those reps, you need that time, you need that practice, especially as a rookie where he just doesn't have the pace of the game, the flow of the game. That's just going to take a lot of time to build that up for sure.
Look, guys, I am just about at the age where I'm starting to notice that hairline fading a little bit. So if you're struggling with the same problem, allow me to make a suggestion. Give Hims a try. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions, and you'll be joining the hundreds of thousands of subscribers who found their hair again. Hims provides you with a convenient, quality access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Just answer a few questions, and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. And if prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you with no shipping cost. The process is simple, 100% online, and there are no uncomfortable doctor visits. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to your ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, and they can help you get your confidence back with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Start your online visit today at hims.com/Purple Insider. That's HIMS.com/Purple Insider for your personalized hair loss treatment options. hims.com/Purple Insider. Results vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with healthcare provider and will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. So I have one follow-up on that. Is it common for a young athlete who is working out all the time and has put on a lot of muscle to lose weight during something like this? Because that's been a question from fans. They showed McCarthy on the sideline in one of the games, and we've seen him around the building. And he does not weigh 220 pounds like he did at the NFL Combine. And I guess that's been one of my questions. Like, is he going to be able to put on the weight again quickly, and what kind of strain that might cause on the recovery?
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Is you get deconditioned regardless because you're not putting weight on that for 6 weeks, sometimes longer. He did have the setback with the repeat surgery and all those things too that just reset that clock of that quad atrophy on your leg, which is a really big deal. And then I tell everyone I like to lift weights. And if you're going to the gym and saying, hey, I want to put 50 pounds on my squat, it's going to take 6 to 9 months of diligent showing up regularly, working like crazy without a knee injury. So you throw a knee injury on top of that. I mean, it does take time. Now they have, incredible resources and ability and strength coaches and all these things. And they're obviously just freaks when it comes to being athletes too. So they can certainly do it faster than the average person. But, the Adrian Peterson post ACL, I mean, that was an absolute less than 1% return to sport type of situation where it just takes time.
Yeah.
Molly,
I will say this too. I would say this, Matt. JJ McCarthy's a young athlete. Like if he were 32, in that range, like young, look, I remember when I was that age as a player, I mean, you bounce back like that. Younger players tend to, you recover so much faster, you regenerate so much faster. And now the science, they can get them in the pool and do the aquatic therapies where you're keeping him off the knee, but yet still can work with movements, right? And moving around in the water, where you can get some resistance on the quad and in the hip joints and doing more things while you're in the pool, but yet keeping the weight off the joint. You'd be surprised at the things that they could do right now, particularly for younger players. So I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm severely concerned about JJ McCarthy. I think he's going to be fine, but do not look to try to rush him back. I think what you have now is you've got to be able to say, look, let's bring Sam Darnold back. 2025, he's going to be our quarterback. We're not going to worry about it. And he's given us enough a body of work to say, look, we can depend. You know more about Sam Darnold going into 2025 than you did coming into 2024. And so therefore, to me, he buys you time to help JJ McCarthy fully recover before you ever think about returning him to play. The Vikings are in an enviable position, by the way. There are a lot of teams around the NFL who wish they had what you have. In fact, if they could poach at least one of your quarterbacks, they'd be happy.
Yeah, and I think the hard part for me is that a lot of the information on this decision is only known by the organization, like where he is in the recovery, how quickly they think he can get back to 100% and be ready to play. The one thing I keep thinking about is how much Sam Darnold went through physically over 17 weeks. And is McCarthy not just going to be ready to play week 1, but be ready to play week 17? Darnold's got his hand taped up. His ankle's been snapped a few times. He's been, and with Kevin O'Connell, he's going to have deep drop backs and throw deep down the field. And that means the quarterback's going to get hit. So maybe I'm treating him too delicately, but he is pretty valuable merchandise for the future of this franchise.
But did you see how he moved in the pocket? I'm telling you, Sam Darnold's improvement this year was so incredible, and particularly how well he performed against pressure. The way he moved in the pocket and with his vision downfield. I remember once when he would do interviews saying he was seeing ghosts out there. You're not seeing ghosts anymore. This guy is dealing. And the way that he is, think about it, in just one offseason, the way that he grew under Kevin O'Connell. Now he's got 2 years under Kevin O'Connell. So Look, I'm not predicting that he's going to be the league's MVP. I just predict that he's going to remarkably, steadily get better with Kevin O'Connell as his coach. It buys them more time for Kevin O'Connell to work with JJ McCarthy once they can get him back on the practice field. Let's just get him back on the practice field before we talk about throwing him into games, because when you're coming off this kind of injury, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to clear before we get you back.
The crazy thing about the way the season went versus the way it ended, Solomon, is that what you're saying about him under pressure is exactly right. And I know you love the PFF data. And if you look at the under pressure numbers, I think he finished in the top 5 in quarterback rating under pressure. But then in the playoffs, it all came apart. Right. And I guess what I think that if he had played really well in those last 2 games, even if they had not won, that it would be a lot easier for people to accept the idea of like, okay, bring him back. He played really well. But the fact that it was a total meltdown and that's the last thing on everybody's mind, I think that makes it hard. It probably makes it harder for everyone, even in the organization, because it's not like the people inside the building are so much different than everybody else. Like they all saw it. They all saw what happened. And it may feel like there's just going to be a ceiling on what they can do if they bring back Sam Darnold. So if they were to do that, Solomon, how can they get over that hump from what happened this year?
I think it's really clear. I think, Kevin, you're going to hear more about this in the offseason, because you saw what the Rams did to Jalen Hurts the very next week, 7 sacks in a game they lost. I mean, now this was the Eagles. I mean, they got after Jalen Hurts, who had less than 200 yards passing. It was Saquon Barkley that carried the Eagles to a win against the Rams. That's what the Vikings are missing. They were missing the run game component to slow down a pass rush. They were missing the ability to win at the line of scrimmage with the run game to help balance things out for Sam Darnold, as you would any quarterback. You go back looking during the divisional round of play, Josh Allen had less than 200 yards passing. Patrick Mahomes had less than 2 because of what? The pressure. What they had to get them out of it was the run game. That's what the Vikings were missing. You and I both know it. Their power run game, or the lack thereof, right? That's what they're missing. Look, Aaron Jones is great. I love Aaron Jones, but they have a run game that's sort of predicated to setting up the play action game, outside zone runs. But when you have to move people inside and really dictate terms and get the power run game, I thought they came up short in the season finale against Detroit in that area. And I think we saw it again in the playoff in the wild card weekend against the Rams. And what happened was you couldn't win at the line of scrimmage. You couldn't protect your quarterback adequately. It was all placed on the quarterback, Sam Darnold. And so you found that there was a chink in the armor of your entire offense. When you can't run the ball against these teams that are going to wholesale sell out to hit your quarterback, and then you're going to find yourself struggling. And oh, by the way, it's going to all fall on the quarterback, and he's going to struggle as well.
Well, you're speaking my language, Solomon, because I felt all year long that they just couldn't control games if the other team got pressure, because they didn't have a run game that they could lean on. And I was looking at the numbers, and they ran on first down more than they passed, but then on second down just didn't run at all. So it was a really predictable type of run game that they had. And Aaron Jones was fine, but it wasn't something that you could control a game with. And I think that's one of the reasons why they had so many games where they got way up and then the other team came back is because they couldn't stay on the field for long drives. Guys got worn down. And then when the line sort of got found out, they were able to pressure him a lot. I want to switch to this weekend's games because, I mean, I know the Vikings aren't in it. I wish I was covering a game this weekend, but we got some great football games here. I want to know from you, Solomon, from a player's perspective. I've always thought the most nerve-wracking is the championship game, even more than the Super Bowl. Now that might be wrong, but because if you lose, it's like, what was this whole journey for? We came so close. I feel like, having been there in 2017 in Philadelphia when the Vikings lost, the heartbreak in that locker room was just unbelievable. Yeah. What is that like from a player's perspective, the pressure that is on you in the championship game?
Yeah, look, I've been to the championship game, won in that game, and it's nothing better, particularly when you know you have next weekend off. And then in 2 weeks, you're going to play for the whole thing, right? In the Super Bowl, which, oh, by the way, everybody is nervous in that game. I mean, everyone, everybody, the flight attendants, the head coach, your trainer, the owner, the Super Bowl is like no other. I'm just telling you right now, everyone's on edge. Everyone's nervous. It's nothing like it. The intensity, there's nothing like it. But you're right. The championship game, if you lose it, you feel like you've gone so far. To be one of the final four teams is phenomenal, right? That means you're playing in the championship weekend. But to not advance, to get that close and not go to a Super Bowl, oh, it's heart-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. There's no doubt about it. So the teams that are going to have to learn now that the intensity of it is now at another level. The impact, everything is so much more intensified in this weekend's game. That's why we call it Championship Sunday, right? This is what it's really all about. And then you worry about Super Bowl when you get there. You really do. Right now, you don't even think about Super Bowl, because if you start putting all of that on the line, you start to weigh all of that before playing the game, I think it tends to be too much. I think you've got to approach Championship Sunday by saying, look, guys, this is a big game, but we got to take care of business. And if you're the home team, I'm going to tell you right now, in the playoffs, there's more pressure on the home team, because if you get down on the scoreboard, even your own fans are turned on you, man. They get nervous. They start having anxiety, thinking that, oh, we're going to lose. We're going to get sent home. Are you kidding me? They're going to come in here and be – the fans get antsy when you're trailing on the scoreboard in games like this. So it really is incumbent upon the home team to get out to a good start, to develop some momentum. You'd be surprised how many players or how many – I hate to use Mark Andrews as an example, but that's your classic example of great player who's phenomenal. For all intents and purposes, one of the best players at his position. But in a big game, critical moment, you can feel the stress. You can feel the anxiety. And look, if it's just not able to catch a ball that hits you right in the breadbasket, some of your best players could end up falling short in the moment, let alone the 53 man on the roster, right? 53rd guy. So that's how critical and that's how big these moments are in these kind of games.
All right, Solomon, I want you to pretend that you're down on the sideline and I'm Jim Nantz and I'm throwing it down to you. I was just watching a game the other day. It was Patriots-Ravens AFC Championship, and let's go down to Solomon Wilcotts on the sideline. Keys to the game. I just want you to give me one. If you had, you're on that sideline, you got your report you're going to do down there on these two games. What's the number one thing you're focused on, Bills, Chiefs, and Eagles and Commanders?
I would say to Jim Nantz, today it's going to come down to the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Can they keep a Buffalo Bills offense that has been red hot, that has scored 30 or more points in 13 games this season, including 8 straight games of scoring 30 or more points? Last time these two teams played, what was it, week 11? The Bills hung 30 on them, beat them 30-20. It's going to come down to Steve Spagnuolo and the Kansas City Chiefs defense. Can they get it going? Can Chris Jones and company really get it going to slow down Josh Allen and a red-hot Buffalo Bills offense? When it comes to the NFC Championship game, to me, will this game be too big for the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels? This is a guy that has defied the odds. He has clearly put up the best rookie quarterback performance that we've seen in the 105-year history of the league. But he's never played in a game this big. And he's playing this game on the road against the Eagles, who he had beaten earlier this year, right? They split the season series. And this is a guy that has always been able to answer all the questions. If you blitz him, he's got ice water running through his veins because he's shown that he can pick you apart. He's playing as well as any quarterback, veteran quarterback in our league against pressure. And so that is going to be, I think, the critical component in this game. We know that Jalen Carter and the Eagles defense is really good. Secondary play, they got really good pass rush. Can they put pressure on the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, and force him to realize he's playing in the biggest game of his life? I think that's going to be very interesting to see.
I've never seen a quarterback of his age and lack of experience that is so
Never.
calm and just so in the
Never.
moment, right? Just
That's right.
it's
That's
it's
right.
it's incredible.
Right.
Well, okay. Who do you think's going to win?
I'm leaning toward the Washington Commanders. Their defense has gotten better. Dan Quinn quietly got this defense playing at a high level. Remember the 4 interceptions? I mean, they were getting picks, left and right. This is incredible to watch. Mike Sainristil on the back end. You got him, and you get the pick 6. It's every time you turn around, they're making plays. And I just think the defense is underrated. And if they can get Brian Robinson in the run game going for Jaden Daniels, this game gets easier for them. And I don't know how Jalen Hurts is going to play. He's got a banged up knee. He's had 6 games where they won this year where he's thrown for under 200 yards. And so their passing game, to me, leaves much to be desired. We know it'll be a handful, but they have not shown that the passing game can get it going. The Eagles should win. It's a home game for them. They have played in games like this. They're very experienced. But I'm leaning toward the Washington Commanders coming away a winner here. I think we're going to get one of the most intriguing matchups in the Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback playing for the Washington Commanders. And I just find it hard to believe that Andy Reid and the Chiefs are going to get beat by Buffalo. However, I'm going to tell you, Buffalo right now is the better team. They're the better team. Offensively, defensively, complementary football, they're the better team. But they've got to show me. There's no way I'm going against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I don't care whatever you do. I got to see it first. But this is a team that, remember, is playing to become the first team to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. They are 2 wins away from getting that done. We always say heavy is the head that wears the crown. They've gone through this season rather lightly, haven't they? They're not even playing good ball yet, and they're still stacking wins as easily as we've seen any team in this situation.
Yeah, Buffalo has a couple injuries in their secondary too, which I think could be a huge factor for Mahomes. So, Dr. Thomas, we've spent some time on very serious knee injuries here, but not all knee injuries have to be that serious. So, a lot of people have knee pain. They think the only solution might be big surgery, but there are other ways to approach it. Please tell me about those ways.
Yeah, I think it's really great, especially with athletes and young people. And really, this is going on all the way into like teenagers and high school sports and all the way up to obviously collegiate and professional. And then frankly, the weekend warrior, which is the majority of who we see. It's not uncommon where your alignment's a little off. So you're a little bow-legged or a little knock-kneed or a little bit off from that standpoint, or it's just, bad luck of wear and tear where one part of your knee gets a little bit of arthritis in it and a little bit of a spot where you don't want to have, you want to have good cartilage to let your knee move smoothly. And then, thankfully, when they get to my door, I tell them about arthritis and I see their eyes get big and they think, oh gosh, arthritis, that means I need a knee replacement. I'm not 60 or 80. Why am I talking about a knee replacement? And we really have some great options for that. And one of those great options we can actually do is it's a 2-stage surgery. We go in and essentially look at that lesion to make sure it's amenable to the types of procedures that don't require a replacement. But basically, then we take a very small sample of cartilage from their knee. And then I tell people you got to be smart to do what I do, but the people that do these other things are a different tier or atmosphere of how they're able to come up with this stuff. But basically, you bring it back to the lab and they grow your own cartilage on a small sheet of cartilage cells. It takes about 6 weeks for it to grow. And then when it comes back, we bring it back for a second surgery. And depending on where it is, it's actually reached the point now where we can actually even do it through a scope. So we can make a very small incision on whatever side of the knee it is, and then another incision on the other side to get the camera in there. And then through this very small cannula, we're able to recreate that cartilage using your own tissue. We have different sizers that we use to put the correct size to fit that lesion. And then once we have that, we basically just take this same sizer, put it on that tissue of your own cartilage, and then just gently lay that on top of there. And it takes 6 to 9 months, which I tell everybody the downside to any sports medicine injuries, it takes 6 to 9 months for the majority of those, sometimes a year, as we know in pro football, obviously. But it's one of those things that after that period of time, you're really, really regrowing your own cartilage. It's not quite as organized as your true normal cartilage, but it does an amazing job basically facilitating where that bad arthritis was to get people back to essentially their full pre-injury level type activities and get them back to being the weekend warriors and get them back to being the dad or mom running around with kids and all that kind of fun stuff. So, it affects tons and tons of people. And we're very fortunate that we have an option. the other nice thing is too that I tell people is that we can always do this. In worst case scenario, 5, 8, 10 years from now, when you are in your 40s or 50s, we can talk about other options in terms of partial knee replacements and things like that to even buy you some time. But we've got great data that shows this lasts and it does a really good job, which is an awesome option for people that are younger with these cartilage lesions.
Right. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who just deal with knee pain and sort
Correct.
of don't ever want to address it because they think they have to get an entire new knee. I had no idea that regrowing cartilage was a thing that was medically possible, but that is amazing to hear. You're in Minnesota. Tell me how people can find you if they're having some knee pain and want to get that checked out.
Yeah. I'm fortunate to be up in Duluth, Minnesota. So we're at Essentia Health. We're the only one level 1 trauma center in the region other than the Twin Cities, essentially. So we've got a huge catch net here, but basically just search out Phillip Thomas and Essentia Health. And if your knee's bugging you at all, you'll find your way to my door because I do all the knee stuff in the region, basically. So happy to help in any way that I can. And I'm always willing to have a very long conversation with patients, and that these are always complex things. And people have the same reaction where they're like, wait a minute, we're growing my cells in like a lab? I don't understand. So the thing I tell people about being young in orthopedics is it's amazing to be at sort of this precipice of all these really amazing, incredible things that we've come up with in the last 10 years. And by we, I'm just lumping myself in there because I want to sound smarter than I am. But people much smarter than me have managed to come up with these very, very impressive techniques to do some really incredible things to potentially avoid these much bigger surgeries if we can do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
Dr. Thomas, we can let them know that also. They can go to maci.com too, to the website, maci.com, to find a doctor in their area. But really, if you need more information on this procedure, go to maci.com and read up on it. I'm telling you right now, it is a phenomenal, innovative technology. And I think a lot of, like Dr. Thomas said, weekend warriors, this is the treatment that you want if you are experiencing any kind of knee pain as a result of cartilage damage. This is the preferred option.
And the other great thing about Maci.com too, is just that they have awesome videos there too. So if there's other questions of what does this mean, what does this entail, there's great 3D animations, there's great videos of our faculty that work with this a lot that go through step by step what it looks like. So as long as you get the stomach for it, it's pretty amazing to see some of this stuff and what it looks like.
I was just going to say, Solomon, the broadcaster, jumps in to make sure you get that website. That was going to be my question.
That's right.
Dr. Thomas, former Viking and tremendous broadcaster, Solomon Wilcotts. Great to catch up with you. Great to meet you, Dr. Thomas. Best of luck in the future with your Vikings fandom. I know that's not an always an easy thing, but I really appreciate you guys' time, and take care.
Thank you, Matt. You're the best, my friend. Take care.
Really appreciate it. Take care.